Welcome back. Now, the Constitutional Court has amended the Copyright Act in favour of blind and visually impaired people. The court's interim order allows literary works to be covered or converted without the authorisation of the owner of the work. Let's get reaction now from Christo De Klerk, who is the president of Blind South Africa. Christo, thank you so much for the time. Let's talk about how this breakthrough ruling is set to impact those that are blind and indeed visually impaired like yourself.
Good afternoon, Marabile and viewers, and thank you for the opportunity. Yes, of course, we are elated about the judgment, because up until 2022, on the 21st of November, when we got the order the first time around, up until then, we were not allowed to make books accessible for blind people to read without the permission of copyright holders. And in 90% of the times, we did not get the copyright permission. So 90% of the books we needed to convert, we were not allowed to do. When I say make books accessible, I mean convert them into Braille or large print or audio or accessible electronic formats such as adapted EPUB and that kind of formats. So we got the order in 2022, but it was a temporary order pending the 2 years the court gave government to fix the legislation. Government did its work commendably. On the 29th of February, the National Assembly passed the bill to the President for his signature. Then came 21 September this year, the deadline. The President had not signed the bill. Then, of course, legal chaos ensued, because there was now an unconstitutional Copyright Act of 1978 and nothing in place to fix it, and we were back in the situation we had been before 2022. So now the court has granted us that relief. They've reinstated the order they granted us 2 years ago as an interim measure. They will finalize it later, but at least with immediate effect, we are back to where we were on the 20th of September this year still. So now we have equal access to published works. We do not need to grovel before any publishers, or we do not have to become criminals like we sometimes had to do if we could not get permission to convert a book, and we needed it for study, like in my own case. I had to become a criminal in order to become a lawyer. So at least that has been decriminalized.
It's absolutely fascinating, actually, when you put it that way, that you had to be a criminal in order to become a lawyer. And I mean, there was still this 2-year period in which the Copyright Amendment Bill then would have needed to have been signed or amended and fixed ultimately, as the court ruled 2 years ago. And yet President Cyril Ramaphosa has still not signed that into law, if I'm correct then. Have you been given any reason as to why that has happened and why he hasn't signed it yet?
Yes, he had one of two options. Either he could sign the bill into law, or if he had constitutional reservations, he could refer it to the Constitutional Court. But he just sat on it for over 7 months. And only when our application came against him, we brought an application actually to compel, to ask the court to compel him to sign the bill. On receipt of our court papers, he then referred the bill to the Constitutional Court on some, what we consider to be some fictitious constitutional considerations he had. Anyway, in his papers, he states reasons for his delay. He said that he was concentrating on signing legislation that would make the elections run more smoothly. But then, as our lawyers pointed out in our answering affidavit, only 2 of the many laws he signed had anything whatsoever to do with the elections, but he signed bills like dagga for personal use and that sort of thing. So I don't know if dagga for personal use is a major thing to make the elections run smoothly. But I think he just could not make his decision.
Yeah, a very interesting one to actually make note of overall there. From here on then, getting a lot of these books amended, converted, covered, reprinted, and put into Braille and the like as well, or audio, is going to be a costly affair, one would imagine as well from here. How exactly do you go about that process from here? Is there an organization that is able to help? Would that still need further government funding, etc. as well?
Yes, the new section that the court crafted stipulates that a person may convert books for a blind print disabled person can convert books for personal use as an individual, or books can be converted by permitted entities. Now, permitted entities are like Braille production houses, which do it on a non-profit basis. Like this organization that I represent, you're blind to say, we are a permitted entity because one of our core functions is the production of Braille, and we do it on a non-profit basis. So yes, we can do it. Still, it is an expensive and time-consuming process. I can give you an example. Converting the average novel. Now, a novel is a fairly simple thing because generally you don't have pictures and graphics and that sort of thing in novels, or tables and that sort of thing, which complicate matters. So to convert a novel would take, from Braille to print, would take around 28 days, and it would cost in the region of 24,000 Rand for the master copy, from which you then produce the copies.
Yeah.
So yes, that is a time-consuming and expensive process.
Yeah. This is also just a temporary order then, right? Amending the Copyright Act favouring the blind and visually impaired. So the fight is still on ultimately to make this permanent.
Yes, we're waiting for it to become permanent. It is clear that the court has much empathy with us, so we are sure we're not going to lose this. But what we really want is the provisions in the Copyright Amendment Bill which are being disputed and which the President has referred to the Concord, because those provisions in the bill are contained in Section 19D, which sets out very clearly the law on this and provides the legal framework for government to ratify the Marrakesh Treaty. Now, the Marrakesh Treaty is a treaty that came into existence in 2013 already, so over 11 years ago, which provides for international exchange of accessible books to print disabled persons in countries which have ratified the Marrakesh Treaty. Now, up to now, 128 countries have ratified it, 30 of those in Africa. Some of them are even our poor neighbors, but our government has not done so yet. Their excuse is that they need the legal framework to do that. Now, Section 19D of the disputed bill, when that comes into existence, will provide us 19D.
Yeah.
So we will then have international exchange, which will expose us to many, many hundreds of thousands of books.
Yeah, look, Christo, one thing is for sure is that one wonders as well why, if this treaty is in place, South Africa would certainly need to be a part of it, and why exactly this has not been followed through upon as well. We thank you so much for your time, though. Indeed, a breakthrough ruling indeed coming through there. But we were speaking to, of course, Christo De Klerk there, who is the president of Blind South Africa.